Hello, everybody. It's John Johnston, Coordination. I'm out here by the tree. I've done a tree video for a while. It's a beautiful day. It's 24 degrees. The wind's blowing like hell. As you can see, everything's moving back and forth. But it's good for the soul. That's what it is. Get out of the house. And this is my wrap on the 2024 college football season. Thought I'd put a stake in the ground about my thoughts about what happened this season and not just Nebraska, but overall. And we're going to stop with I have notes. There were more top gains against good teams. And I think that, everybody complained about the conferences were bigger and we raided the Pac-12 and destroyed that conference. And, the SEC picked up Texas and Oklahoma. And what we get out of that? Well, we got Oregon and Ohio State, which was an incredible game. And then we got Texas and Georgia. And, Texas lost at Georgia twice this season. That was kind of funny, but they got to play them and lose. Anyway, I think, you know, they were just better games overall. And personally, I made it to two Nebraska games this year. I let everybody else be in charge for the first time in quite a while, like game threats, things like that. And I made it to the Colorado game, which was an incredible experience. Got to meet a lot of people. And then I made it to the Wisconsin game, another win, which got Nebraska over the hook and to a bowl game. And it was a good game and it was fun. And my son proposed right as I was doing my post game video. And then I kept on talking about football. Not like I haven't gotten some shit about that. Not from my son, though. My wife. Anyway, she laughed a little. But it was a blast. I think this college football season overall was a blast. A big help for that was Nebraska didn't completely suck. We made a bowl game and we won it. And that hasn't happened for many years, and it was good to get over that hump. We'll see what happens in 2025. Seems exciting. The 12-team playoff, it was fun. I enjoyed it. But the games blowouts, people complained about the seeding. Some of the games weren't that good, but more teams got more opportunities. And I think that's important because, only the top four teams were getting in before. And basically by the beginning of November, it was like all ESPN could do or Fox could do was talk about the top four teams. And this year they were forced to at least cover more. And more teams had hope of getting into the playoff. And I think that made for a much more interesting college football season. There was so much complaining about about the playoffs. Do you not like football or what the hell? Let's see. There's a lot of fixing. There's a whole shit ton of videos out there everywhere. Every articles about fixing college football. And my biggest problem with these is they 90% of them are let's fix college football by making it the NFL. And, let's take the teams and put them all together in the conferences that are geographically dispersed, but they're all even. And Notre Dame has to join the conference. And then we're going to have a college football commissioner. In what legal structure does any of this exist? And what the hell? You think a college football commissioner would make their own decisions? The last decision that was made by a commissioner in any sport anywhere was the 1919 Black Sox scandal. And after that, all the people that owned the teams looked at the people being commissioners and say, hey, buddy, you're a hand puppet. You do what we tell you to do. That's what you think Roger Goodell, whatever his name is, makes his own decisions? What the hell? We don't need a college football commissioner. Or we already have one. His name's Charlie Baker. He's the head of the NCAA. And the moment I say NCAA, everybody goes, and then the other solution they have is, well, the Big Ten, the SEC should just break away. Well, they're not going to do that. They're not. And the reason why they're not going to do that is because that would make them accountable for college football. You see, everybody wants to be in the position where they have all the power, but none of the accountability. And that's where Greg Sankey, head of the SEC, is right now. He can blab all he wants, but not be held accountable because he can just point to the NCAA, oh, our hands are tied. Or the guy that runs the Big Ten who doesn't blab enough, but I can't remember his name off the top of my head, and I didn't write up my notes. They're not going to break away. The only way they break away from the NCAA is if the smaller teams, the G5 teams, those teams say, why don't you get the hell out of here? That's the only way this happens. The Big Ten, the SEC are not going to go, well, we're going to go do our own thing. This is not. So you want to fix college football? embrace the chaos. It's always been chaos. The top teams, they've always had the most resources. They've always been able to outspend everybody. This isn't really that much different, except for a couple things that I'm going to get to. It isn't much different than it's ever been. It's just more pronounced. And the I'm getting frozen. The payers are getting played. The players are getting paid. Jesus. And that's the thing. NIL. I call it nil. Everybody else calls it NIL. I'm not against it. I think that I think the players should be being paid. They're the ones doing all the work. They're the ones taking all the risks with their bodies. I'd like to point out that, Nick Saban recently said that this is unsustainable, and he's probably right. You can't spend $20 million a year, but we don't know that yet. We really don't. Big point news. We don't know that it's unsustainable. And what's funny about Nick Saban saying that is, what was unsustainable? What was unsustainable was continuing to pay college coach buyouts of $80 million. Jimbo Fisher had an $80 million buyout. That's ridiculous. And paying coaches ever escalating salaries, that was unsustainable. Building Taj Mahal facilities everywhere, all over the place, spreading them across the planet, that was unsustainable. Nick didn't complain about that because he benefited from it. No, he's got to whine about changes. I wonder if that guy's ever been happy for more than 30 seconds at a time in his life. We'll move on. We don't know that it's unsustainable. It looks like it, but it isn't. And I'd like to point this out about the NIL stuff that comes out about players. There's stuff right now about there's big offers on the table for Jeremiah Smith, a young phenom freshman from Ohio State receiver. We don't know that. We don't. I'd say most of the public data about NIL contracts and their offers, the money people are being offered, is 90% bullshit. It's in the best interest of an agent to say a high number. It's in the best interest of the players to say, yeah, I'm worth $80 billion. It's, it used to be that agents would put their coaches' names out there as being, Notre Dame is interested in this guy because he's done a good job over here. And then the guy would get a raise. What's the same bullshit that's going on right now with NIL? Nobody's going to be public about what they're saying. The one guy that was public was that guy that did a podcast, and he said he was taking 20% of the contract as an agent, and everybody ripped him apart publicly for taking 20% because most agents only take 5%. And then he doubled down on it because he's a moron. And that guy, for spewing his mouth off, is not going to get 20%. He's probably not going to have any customers. But I'll tell you what NIL did give us this year. NIL gave us Vanderbilt beating Alabama because it did level the playing field somewhat. Vanderbilt was able to go out and buy a quarterback that was capable of helping them beat Alabama. And by God, if that wasn't a joyful thing to watch. Come on, there's some benefits to this stuff. It's not all bad. Except for the next thing I'm going to get to, which is the transfer portal. I think the transfer portal is a disaster. Here's what I wrote down. It's turned players into toasters for me. And let me explain that. In my years as a consultant, I've worked for a lot of businesses that treat their employees like toasters. And what do you do with a toaster? When it breaks or it doesn't perform, doesn't toast as well as you want, you get rid of it and you buy a new toaster. You're not emotionally invested in it. You just go, screw that toaster, I want a new toaster. And you go over to Target and you buy whatever's on sale. Maybe you look at the functionality. Maybe you get a toaster oven because you're a really fancy guy. But you know what I mean? They just become replaceable objects that you don't give two shits about whether or not they're there or not, or you just get another one. And Nebraska looks like they picked up some good players. And I'm going to say the one thing a content creator should never say. I don't care. I really don't. This is part of the thing that's broken me on college football. Emmett Johnson left. Oh, and then he came back. I don't know, another guy left, and then he came back. And I'm after a while, I'm like, okay, what did we pick up 863 wide receivers? They're going to be here in the spring. How many are still going to be here in the fall? Regular media is going to probably do these feel-good stories where we get to know these guys and we find out that they've overcome diversity and adversity, I guess is the term. Maybe they've overcome diversity too. I don't know. But you get the idea. I don't care until I see him. I'm going to go to the spring game, hopefully, and I'd love to see him there. But until I see him in a Husker uniform in the fall, who gives a shit? And that's the problem with the transfer portal is I don't have any emotional connection to most 90% of these players we're bringing in. If they're going to play for Nebraska, I'm going to be happy during the season. During the off season, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do with that Kevin guy, that super fan guy, who on TV, you can hear that guy screaming in every freaking Husker contest there is. I'm going to be that guy. I admire the fact that he goes to every Husker event and every Husker, it doesn't matter what sport it is. I sat next to him at baseball games. Well, not right next to him, but close to him. My God, that guy's loud. After 9 innings, you want to kill him. Oh, that's not true. You just want to rough him up. But I'm going to pay attention to everything else. Brett Prince is fun to watch. I don't know what's going on with men's basketball. The baseball team might be really, really good this season. But in terms of, caring about all the moves that the football team is going to make, I'm just exhausted with it. And the transfer, like I said earlier, there's no legal structure for any of this. There's no they need to put a salary cap on nil. Well, they legally can't. They need to keep players from transferring. They legally can't unless they sign contracts to keep them from transferring. They should break away. It's the same shit about fixing college football. There's not just some magic genie that's going to show up and do all this stuff for us. In Congress, I think they're busy doing other things. God knows what they're doing. Okay, the worst part of the season, and these were kind of not on the field parts. I mean, the worst part of the season was Nebraska going into a swoon and losing games in a row, and especially the Iowa game. We won't touch them much on that. I just said it. The worst parts of the season was Kirk Herbstreit railing against Indiana in the first playoff game. I like I did like Kirk Herbstreit. I always think he's done a good job. I think he's a good announcer. I think he's usually been fair. Well, this season blew that all to hell. I know there's a lot of Nebraska fans that feel like he hates Nebraska, but come on, everybody feels like ESPN hates their team. But go blast Indiana for not being there, the 12 best teams, and it just basically was a cover for when the SEC is down this year and they weren't that good. And, the fact that he went on McAfee's show and said it's not him posting on Twitter, it's his son. Okay, so you're a fraud in a lot of ways. Screw you, Kirk, you jackass. Used to like you. Now I literally watched Skycast throughout the playoffs as much as I could, so I didn't have to hear that son of a bitch call games. The worst part of the season was SEC fans on social media. It's the constant, Indiana didn't play anybody. Why isn't Alabama in the playoff? And then the best part of the season was SEC fans on social media. Alabama didn't play off, Indiana didn't play. Weepy. Just give it up. The SEC, now that everybody else can pay players, just isn't that good as they used to be. Everybody else could spend money. We can have our coaches. You don't have to spend billions of dollars on a coach. Mostly because that is being taken care of by NIL. The coaches' contracts are going to go down a little bit so schools can spend money on their players, and the buyouts are going to go down. Those are good things. And then one of the best parts of the season was Shane Gillis calling Nick Saban Alabama Jones. That whole segment was just hilarious. I wasn't a big Shane Gillis fan when I started hearing about it, but now that guy's great. And Nick Saban, of course, getting all bent out of shape about it. We're develop players. Whatever, Nick, you pissant. And then obviously, I think the funnest part of the entire season was Nebraska beating Wisconsin. I was at that game. It was a glorious game. It was a lot of fun. It was nice. We scored a lot of points. And I think, that's the end of my notes. And this has gone on well. And I honestly can't feel my fingers anymore. But 2025 Nebraska, it's going to be interesting. I guess we'll see who's on the team and who isn't come fall. And then, all the whining about cutting down to the 105 player roster limit. That's the other thing that I kind of find amazing is all these coaches whining about this. I mean, come on. You do 105 players. What it means is you can't make mistakes like you used to before. You have to be really good at evaluating talent and really good at who you're bringing on the portal. And, can you practice? Can you have a spring game? Come on. Good God. But a lot of I have a history channel. Years ago, teams had like 25 players that played both ways. And now I realize we have specialists and we have this guy that does this and that guy that does that. Oh my God, what if a guy gets injured? It'll be fine. You'll be fine. And you won't have to pay him as much. They won't eat mounds of shit tons of food that cost the athletic department money, and maybe some of the other sports can get some of that money too. All right, that's it for now. That's my wrap on the 2024 Nebraska football season, college football season. Give me your thoughts, and I appreciate it if you made it this far. And once again, I appreciate all the support you've given us at Corn Nation, and I look forward to 2025 we'll be in the best year of our lives. Take care. Love y'all. Bye. I can't get my fingers to work.